Greetings again and welcome back to those of you who were watching with us earlier, to those of you who have just joined us. We are looking at the English First Additional Language Paper 1, which of course you did in June of the last term, and this now is 2015, of course. So this is the second section of this broadcast, which is referring to the language and visual literacy component of this exam paper. I am Timothy of Tapelong. We are broadcasting today from the University of the Free State, as I hope you can see from my beautiful hat. And let's start by looking at a few notes that we have here. People, we are looking here first at language. Now, when you are looking at language, you look first at the letters of the alphabet. I know this is basic work that you have done in grade 2, but it's always good for you to be reminded of this. The letters of the alphabet are in three groups. It's vowels, consonants, and of course the semi-vowel Y, which can serve the role of either a vowel or a consonant. And there underneath I've indicated, let's see, there we are. Uppercase is also called capital letters. Lowercase is also called small letters. Very basic information, but I am surprised at how often people simply have never been taught the absolute basics of the English language, specifically in writing. Let's move on slightly. Here I've included what you would call a few useful definitions. Parts of speech are, of course, types of words, and there I have listed what the parts of speech in English are. But if you look at this side, figures of speech, non-literal, poetic language, and I've given you examples there such as simile, metaphor, personification, etc. There are hundreds of them. We don't have time to go into them all now, but rule number one is that in English so many people confuse the difference, or confuse parts of speech with figures of speech, and these parts of speech questions are becoming more and more common in various exams. I've also included here a few definitions with which you may or may not yet be familiar. Here you will see e.g. We all know it means for example, but did you know that it is from the Latin exempli gratia, which means free sample? Clever, eh? Etc. means and so forth, and there you see it written out in the full, in its original Latin form. Finally, you have ie, which means that is, in Latin, id est. There, you've learned something new. Now, going back to our parts of speech. Verb, noun, adjective, adverb, pronoun, conjunction, preposition, article, and the reason I'm galloping through that is, let's take a look at the definitions for each of the 8 parts of speech. Very briefly, I'm not going to ask you to do this as a task. I have merely borrowed a task that we used in the classroom. And here we go. A verb is a doing word. Yes, you learned that in grade 2. So what? It's the correct definition. A noun then is a naming word. Also a grade 2 definition, but it's the correct one. Things now get a little bit more complex with an adjective which describes a noun. Now here, after that, we get the adverb, frequently misdescribed. Watch here. An adverb does not describe, it qualifies, or you can use the word modifies, a verb or an adjective or another adverb. There's a technical definition to you. I'll leave that on the screen for another second or so that the people who want to stop the tape recording of this or the video recording can quickly hit the pause button and write the definition down. Let's move on. A pronoun stands in place of a noun or another pronoun. Reflexive pronoun stands in place of another pronoun. But we don't have time to go into that in detail now. A conjunction is, of course, a joining word used for joining words, phrases, and clauses. Some people say that it joins a sentence to another sentence. I believe that is wrong, because then those two sentences cease to be sentences and become clauses. So there. Prepositions. No definition actually possible for preposition. It's the little linking words used to clarify meaning in a sentence. That's what I've written. That's not the only definition by any means. Rather, what you must do is learn the list of the common definitions, and there you will see I've given you by, with, from, in, on, at, to, of, down, between, around, through, etc., etc., etc. This goes on for a very long time, and just by the way, I have here, of course, the Lucian and Pincus book. As I recall, the prepositions are listed on page 38. Let me just go to that to make sure. Sorry, it's page 37. There, oh dear. Let me see if I can get this document scanner going again. No, we shall have to look at that later. It'll be too complex to switch across now in the middle of this. But there is some sort of list of prepositions. And finally, of course, you have your articles. A, an are the indefinite articles. The is the definite article. Okay, now, going on slightly, I want to draw here to your attention the word context. Context is meaning according to position and surrounding elements. And the reason context is important is because of the examples I've given you there. If you look at example number 1, I like the taste of wine. In that case, taste is a noun. It's the taste. In the second one, I like to taste wine. There it is being used as an infinitive verb. All right, taste. Here's another one, the word love. Frequently confused between verb and noun. This one. I love my wife, in this case a verb, and then I have what? Love for my wife. The verb now is have. There, the word love is a noun. An abstract noun, by the way. And you know what an abstract noun is? It's something that cannot be detected by the 5 human senses. All right? It's a thing, yes. But we can't see it. We can't smell it. We can't hear it. We can't taste it. And we can't touch it. That makes it an abstract noun. Please remember that definition. It is so far the best definition that I have encountered. All right. Here, a brief note on root words, prefixes, and suffixes. All right. They have given you an example of happy, which is an adjective. That is our root word in this case. Now look at the modification I have made to that. Unhappy changes it into the negative with the addition of a prefix. Nothing difficult there, but it's simple and could come up as an exam question. Then, happiness. Now we have a noun with by the addition of a suffix. Okay? Happiness, of course, abstract noun again. Happily. There, once again, a slight difference in suffix, and you have an adverb. Right. There I've added a note. Most words ending with the suffix ly are adverbs. For example, quickly, safely, bravely, quietly, carefully, seriously, etc. But there are many common exceptions. And here we have friendly, lovely, stately. These are adjectives. Please take note of that. Here we have the importance of correct punctuation. We have 2 sentences there written in bold. And I've entitled it Save a Life, Use a Comma. And then we've got, let's eat, Granny. Oh dear, somebody has omitted the required comma. That would turn us all into cannibals. And then the second one is, I like cooking, my family, and pets. If those sentences are missing the required commas, it changes their meaning completely. And I have added a little note down below here that people who misuse punctuation deserve a long sentence. Ha ha ha, isn't that funny? People, here Very briefly, we're going to run through the basics of punctuation. I'm doing this deliberately because the last time that I presented this series of lessons, I got lots and lots and lots of people saying to me, hey, stop, slow down. Where did you get that information? Well, never mind. Let's just go through it quickly. There you have your capital letters used to start a sentence, used for proper nouns and adjectives, please note that, and used for the first word of direct speech. And I've added a note here, the pronoun I is always capitalized. These things here are both a blessing and a curse. A blessing because they allow us to communicate with each other, a curse because they have eliminated the need for correct spelling and punctuation. As a grammar Nazi, of course, if somebody sends me an incorrectly spelt or punctuated text message, I correct it and send it back with a stern warning not to do that again. Full stops. Used to end a sentence and used in certain abbreviations. For example, ha ha ha, isn't that witty? Commas. Used to separate words in a list, used to separate phrases or clauses, and used to separate introductory words or phrases from the rest of the sentence. In other words, when you want a pause, chuck in a comma. When, however, you want a slightly longer pause, use a semicolon. It says there, semicolons create a longer pause than a comma, balance equally important ideas, and are used to connect main clauses. If you join main clauses together with a comma, it is comma splice error and is technically incorrect. Let's move on here. Colons, of course, show that a list is following, and they are used to introduce quotations or explanations. Question marks, used to indicate questions. Duh, thought you knew that already. Of course you did. Exclamation marks, used to indicate strong emotion. Used after interjections, that is, ow, in interjection. And, of course, indicate shouting or orders. Okay, very briefly. Quotation marks, I've made a note here, they are also called inverted commas, same word, words, used to indicate direct speech, and of course used when quoting, duh, clever. Parentheses, brackets, more commonly called brackets, used to insert additional information into a sentence or paragraph. Okay, let's just see. Hyphen links words together to form compound words, used within words to create a different meaning. I'm sorry we don't have time for examples now. And used to separate certain prefixes from the root word. Okay, so those are used within words. The dash is used between words. Used to separate parts of a sentence with a long pause, and used to insert additional information into a sentence. Bullets. Used to create lists when there is no order of priority. They're not numbered. When you number a list, there's an order of priority. Bullets don't do that. Here, next, I've got here punctuation of direct speech. Now, I have seen this asked in an exam, so I've included the 3 different ways of punctuating direct speech here. First one, there you are. You see comma, open inverted commas, punctuation within the inverted commas, close inverted commas. Second one, of course, your introductory phrase or clause comes at the end. This is a phrase in this case. I felt healthy today, so I was able to donate blood, comma, close quotation marks, said Timothy. Third one, I felt healthy today, comma, close quotation marks, said Timothy, comma, open quotation marks, lowercase letter, so I was able to donate blood. Okay, now, for those of you who, once again, are copying off the recording of this, now hit the pause button. However, I must carry on. There you have your tenses. Nothing complicated there. These are your most common tenses. There are others, such as the present perfect, which drives me absolutely mad because I can never identify it. But for simplicity's sake, use these 6. Present, past, future, perfect, past perfect, future perfect. Okay? And on the next slide, which we are coming to in a second, you will see examples of all of those in both the continuous and simple forms. Take a look. Tenses in simple and continuous forms. There it is in the form of a table. This, for you teachers who are watching, and I know there are teachers watching, because I always watch these broadcasts for hints and tips. There we go. Teach it in this form as a table. It makes it so clear and straightforward. There is your simple, your past, your future, your perfect, your past perfect, and your future perfect. Simple form, and there's the same thing, continuous form. This makes it easy for the students. Oh, I don't call them learners. I think they are students. Students study, learners learn. Studying is active, learning is passive. So, join my example and address the children at your school as students. It boosts their morale and it makes them study. Well, I hope. This is possibly the most difficult question in every paper one. Changing direct speech to indirect. Oh, it's difficult. It's so very difficult because people don't realize the reality of this. It's used in real life when you are changing a quote to tell somebody else what has been said. You will use this in the classroom. You will use this at school. It's reality. Unfortunately, most people treat it simply as preparation for an exam. That's not actually what it's all about. Not all of our school life is to prepare you to write your final papers in November. No. What we, the teachers, teach you, the students at school, is partially exam preparation, but predominantly we are preparing you for life after school. If what we are teaching you at school is of no use to you, why bother? That is why I am so much in favor of mathematical literacy, because it's a very practical subject. Pure maths, I am myself qualified in pure maths, but I know that the subject is mainly theoretical and is not useful to everybody unless you are going to become an engineer or a doctor or a pilot. And let's go back here now to direct and indirect speech. This is useful in everyday life. You walk into your house at the end of the day, and if, like me, you are married, your wife asks, "What did the principal say to you?" And I'll say, "Oh, he said that." Da, 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 da. I use this in everyday life, and you too will be using this in everyday life. Let's take a look at the details now. Changing direct speech to indirect, and here is how it's done. First, remove most of the punctuation. Okay? Second, alter the pronouns. Actually, I mustn't start numbering this list that seems to be giving us an order of priority. Let me simply say next. Insert a connecting word. Next, change the adverbs and change the tense. Always it goes back by one tense if the introductory verb is in the past tense already. Then this must be taken back by one tense as well. And always in an exam, they make sure that the introductory verb is in the past tense. So, let's take a look at our first example. And it says here, the boy asked, "When was it and how much does it cost?" Now, the first thing I must stress is that not all of these are used every time. This is a guideline. So let's look at how to convert this into the indirect speech form. And we've got here, look here, the boy asked when. We don't need to change that. It stays the same. When that had been made, the pronoun changed there, and the tense, notice, had been. It's gone from past to perfect, and what it cost. All right, what, as opposed to how much does, it just changes to what it cost. Good. The second one, Timothy said, comma, I felt healthy yesterday, so I was able to donate blood. Now, note, in the past tense already, let's see how to convert this one. And here we have it. Timothy said that. There's your connecting word. You see, that is the most common one. He, pronoun has changed. Had felt healthy. The tense has changed. The previous day, the adverb has changed. So he, pronoun, had been, tense, able to donate blood. Right, there's two very simple examples. Let's move on now with a quick look at the definitions of visual literacy. There you will see the advert with which we began a few minutes back. It's a very clever advert, by the way, and it says it's for a beautiful city, all right? It's clean after your dog, and of course it's put there by the city of Beograd, or Belgrade as it's commonly pronounced. But doesn't that just get your attention? Clever. Visual literacy is the ability to recognize or understand ideas conveyed through visible actions or images as pictures. And then I've put a comment. Put simply, it means understanding what you see. There's nothing complex about that. Here you will see a few definitions which you may need to know. A cartoon is a drawing intended as satire, caricature, or humor. All right. A comic strip, which is far more common in first editional language, is a group of cartoons in a narrative sequence. Satire, next one down, using humor to expose human or social weaknesses or stupidities, taking the mickey or ripping off. And there we have, finally, caricature is a ridiculous exaggeration. Just on the comment of satire, using humor to expose human or social weaknesses or stupidities. We earlier on saw that brilliant Ford Bantam advert, which satirizes the old racial tendencies of the people in South Africa, where they prejudge people. It's called prejudice, all right? So that is an example of satire used in an advertisement, and one of the reasons why I found that advertisement so brilliant. Now we go on to our universal facial expressions. Nothing particularly complex here. All of you know what a face looks like, I'm sure. You've got two eyes over here, you've got a nose here and a mouth, and sometimes you have ridiculously large ears sticking out. And on rare occasions when the person is truly noble and honorable and a genius and perfect in his subject, he has a beard, ha ha ha, just joking. Right, happiness, ha. Sadness, boo hoo hoo, fear, arak, disgust, sis, surprise, whack, anger, grr, pain, ah. That's it. Those are your facial expressions. Nothing difficult about that. What does make it slightly more difficult is when you have to explain how you know about that. Oh, we'll come back to that book a little bit later if we get the chance. But the information is in this book here. I'll hold it up to see. I'm sure it can be picked up on the camera. It's got lots of information about visual literacy in this book. It's brilliant. Let's move on. Advertising techniques. People, you must be aware of these. It will help you in your paper 1. You have creativity. Is the advert original? You have emotion. Does it stir you inside? You have reason, which you may or may not always recognize as reason. You have facts being given, well, maybe, and you have a person's opinion, and where it'll say, I think that this is the best thing since grated cheese was invented. Well, it may or may not be true. All right. Then you have your advertising tactics. Advertisers use visual effects, they use language devices, they use emotions and desires. They use universal concerns, things such as being healthy. Everybody wants to be healthy. Everybody wants to have enough money. Everybody wants to be a success in life. These are universal concerns, right? Statistics. Oh, watch out for statistics. Lies, damned lies and statistics. Statistics can mean anything that you want them to mean. So be very careful when they're included in an advert. It's probably false. Humor. Oh, I love a good advert, which makes me laugh. I like to laugh anyway. And then, of course, you have appealing gimmicks. appealing gimmicks. Things like special offers, a competition which they're going to enter you into this competition if you buy the product, etc., etc. Those are your gimmicks. Fairly straightforward. That's how it works. Here you'll need to know a target market is, of course, the specific people at whom an advertisement is directed. That's obvious. And a slogan is a brief attention-getting phrase used in advertising or promotion. Nothing special about that, but you do need to know those two terms for answering the questions in a paper 1. And there, of course, you have AIDA, which is that great abbreviation. These are the tactics always used by advertisers. Listen to me. Attention, they're going to get your attention somehow, and if it means that they've got to show you the woman's behind, they'll do that if they want to drive home the message. Interest, does it interest you? Desire, do you want the product or service? Action, do you know how to go out and obtain this, or how to go out and contact the service provider? An interesting thing which I should just add here, that's a cell phone. A cell phone is made as a product. It is an example of goods. However, the service provider, MTN or Vodacom or Cell C, these guys provide a service. This is a combination of both. That forms the basis of some very tricky questions in an exam. Right, and now let's take a look at the exam paper. Now, because we've just looked at the advertising techniques, let us now look in detail at this advert. And the first question it raises, driving while intoxicated, you see that? Wait, let me use the electronic version of the pointer. There we are, intoxicated. That is, by the way, a figure of speech called neologism. They've made up a new word. Neologism, because the word intoxicated has not up to this point existed in English, but it's very eye-catching. And then, of course, you have this picture, this visual effect of a classic cell phone, which is very similar to mine, and you've got this hand using the cell phone with a steering wheel in the background, and it's a warning to us. Of course, intoxicated means don't send text messages while driving. It was absolutely horrifying. Some years ago, I drove with somebody in a truck. And now I'm not making this up. He was eating a hamburger